So it's day 2 of the Leveraging Your Influence Intensive here with Mickey Keshtin up in upstate New York. And today was about connecting with vision. And so we started the day with dipping into what is nonviolence. We're here studying nonviolent communication. What is nonviolence? And where does power fit into nonviolence? So Mickey defined nonviolence as love, truth, and courage. Love, she described as this inherent love of all life, regardless of what they do, regardless of what people do, or things do, or animals do, this inherent love of all of it, a quality of unconditional heart opening, an infinite circle of care. The attitude of nonviolence includes everyone in my circle of care, no exceptions. With truth, she spoke about it as not philosophical, that it's on the doing level. If I know for myself what is true, then go for it. We know what is true for ourselves regardless of how much it is tampered with us, or how much it is tampered with. Like, there's some place inside of us where we actually know what is true regardless of what society or our world puts on us. And then the third aspect is courage, and she defines courage as the willingness to take risks. And she quotes Gandhi, which says, "A person who hasn't overcome all fear cannot practice nonviolence to perfection." And she sort of she heard that and she's like, to perfection, I guess. Yeah, to perfection, because the more fear we can overcome, the more nonviolence we can practice. That's not required to overcome all fear in order to practice nonviolence at all. And that fear is the natural organism's response to the perception of danger. And that nonviolence requires choice, which includes the well-being of all. It means being able to interpret the role of fight or flight, and in that, insert choice. And then she spoke about justice very briefly, and we'll touch on justice again later, as she did later in the day. And she talks about justice as a language of rights and not a language of needs. So a language of rights pertains to a language that separates, I have a right regardless of anyone else, whereas a language of needs talks about a language that connects. It's I have a need, you have a need, we can find a common ground here. She then spoke about power, which is the capacity to mobilize resources to attend to needs. This was a definition that her and her sister created, which I find really effective. I think that was their intention, to find an effective definition for power. And that it is a significant human need, in the need to mobilize resources to attend to needs. It's like the key to the other needs. And we have come to equate power with oppression, and in so, we shy away from it, when really power inherently is not connected to oppression. If we don't distinguish power from its use, we're not fully understanding what power is. And she said the most practical and radical question of power is who decides. And so she showed us this little diagram, which I'm going to show you. It's not going to make a lot of sense in showing you, but I am going to describe it. It's this line right here. And on one end of the spectrum, we have others decide. It's the abdication of power. On the far end of the spectrum, we have I decide, which is power over. And right in the middle, we have everyone decides, which is power with. So I'm just going to let that sink in for a second. And we need to get over the idea that unilateral decision or power over is necessarily bad. That a lot of times parents have unilateral decision over their children, and that they're holding the needs of their children even though they are the ones making the decisions. I'm flipping through my notes a little bit. It's been a really big day. And she also spoke on this last little bit about power and facilitation. She said that the willingness to do things that won't necessarily work for everyone is important as a facilitator. That basically she's saying you can't please everyone, or that it might be impossible in all situations to attend to everyone's needs in every moment. And you have to make choices that attend to the needs you're choosing to attend to when you're facilitating. And then we did this huge, dense, beautiful piece on money and needs. And she tells this story of being a little girl and going to the store with her mother and asking her mother why she has to pay money for the groceries, why they have to pay money for the groceries. She doesn't understand. What is the reason? Why can't they just have their groceries that they need and leave? And she says that she has yet to find a compelling reason or a compelling answer as to why we need to pay for things, which really struck a chord. And that it's such a fundamental mythology that we've all believed it. This idea that we need to have money to buy the things, to engage in exchange economy in order to have our needs met. And she said that anything that is not considered scarce is not studied or considered valuable in economics, which is huge. That economics is a study of scarcity, that economic growth is growing the realm of scarcity. So it's this really huge concept around shifting from this exchange paradigm into one of gifting. She also said that in her experience, most people have a harder time receiving than giving, and if we want to restore a gift economy in the world, we have to increase our capacity to receive. She also said that gift economy and money and resources is about flow, and that accumulation is one of the blocks of flow. And everything that I accumulate stops circulating, is a way of not trusting that there will be enough for me later. And she spoke this thing which really struck a chord for me, which is that she's less and less able to contemplate the concept of putting money aside for the future, which is something like I personally dance with because I have a habit of making money and spending money on things I care about and not saving money for 5 years to buy a house or something of that like grander. So it's something that I've been sitting with today and just wanted to name that was alive for me as well. And then from there we shifted into the concept of vision around money and gifting economy. She said right now our sharing of resources is based on exchange, and that what she wants to see instead of valuing resource is valuing people and life, and that she wants to restore the flow of generosity, which really in my life really reminds me of Burning Man, and how I remember my first experience of Burning Man, walking down the street and having people offer me tequila shots, foot massages, a meal, a ride on their game, and my initial reaction was like, oh no, I'm okay, because in our society when people are offering you those things, they're really asking you to buy them. And in a gift economy, people are asking you to receive because they really enjoy giving. So that's just like, it's a real like shift from how we've existed thus far in our culture. And she said that she feels sorry for all the people who don't have a spontaneous access to the joy of giving, which I've definitely experienced in Burning Man and other gift economy, or gifting, just giving and being generous is so joyful. And she spoke about how right now we allocate resources based on output equity, what the value is of what you can put out. And this makes one person's needs more important than the other. So if I'm a doctor, my output equity is more than that if I am a housekeeper, which makes the doctor's needs more important than that of the housekeeper, which doesn't ultimately make sense. And the idea is to shift to a needs-based division of resources. People who need resources get resources. We live in this myth of freedom where the fundamental structure of our life is this coercion to work. And she put forward one concept, which is basic income. It's a simple way to have a world where willingness dictates what is done. Because we do the things that will give us the jobs that will give us the most money in our current system. And we don't have faith that what is of meaning to us will provide our livelihood, or that our needs will be taken care of without earning them. And basic income is this concept where everybody receives this basic amount that should cover their needs, and then people are motivated to do what they choose to do from there. She talked about the concept of deserve and how it came into the world to justify uneven distribution of resources. Anytime we think I deserve something, we separate ourselves from our needs. And I want to separate our needs from justifying it or earning it. She also spoke about how money masks our interdependence. We believe that when we can pay for something at the store that we are independent, when really we rely on the people who work at the store, the people who made the product. Money masks the fact that we need other people. Money also masks the arbitrary way that resources are divided. It masks needs and the fact that we truly have choice. It masks certain forms of inequality, like why do people with more money have more access to the healthcare they need? And we sort of like completed that particular section of money on that note. And she said something, sometimes I quote her and it's random and it's not connected to other things, and it's just because like what she said is so impactful for me. And she said that one of my goals here is to increase your ability to be radical and non-alienating. which I really, really liked. And so we had a dinner conversation, and that included fairness and justice. And so I brought up fairness because in a previous talk I had heard her say, fairness creates wars. And I was like, what do you mean, Mickey? I really agree with that, but I don't know why. And she said that fairness is a placeholder for needs. It sits in a place that's close to survival. The only way to matter and say what we want is to say what we want is fair and right. It's a placeholder in some way to make sense of everyone's needs. It's that I want to matter and I want to care. I want something here that tends to my needs and hold other people's needs as well. So it's this and so shifting away from the concept of fairness is shifting to an attention towards needs and what are the needs present in the situation. And this is a book about justice, and she said that justice, especially when it applies to someone having done something that is harmful to someone else, is justice is in place as a hope for needs being attended to better, and a desire to rectify wrongs as best we can. However, punishing is the surest way to increase what you don't want to happen. This has been studied over and over again, that punishing someone is the most likely way to increase the likelihood of that undesirable behavior repeating itself. And this is especially in relationship to kids and criminals. The word justice is embedded with right, wrong, and punishment, and that's why she chooses not to use it. It's not something that she chooses to engage with. And somebody asked about, isn't nonviolence a world that works for everyone? And what her response was that nonviolence is a methodology, and a world that works for everyone is the end goal. And so with that end goal in mind, she focused on some steps for change. Step 1 is vision something else is possible. Step 2 is have resources to mobilize for change. And step 3 is choose to create change. And she says, in creating change, vision implementation is showing what you want by doing it as an act of civil disobedience, and that you're willing to disrupt for a vision. I'm just going to say that again. Vision implementation is a type of civil disobedience that shows what you want by doing it, even if it's against the law. And she also shared that you need fewer people in civil disobedience, which is breaking the law, than in construction programs like growing a garden and not engaging in the food systems. You need fewer people to participate in order to create change. So that's what we covered today. It was a really big day. We started at 7 with movement, and it's now probably like 9:30. So I just wanted to thank you guys all for being in my life, and thank you if you're following this and receiving from it. I'd love to hear from you and that it's like valuable. And if it's not valuable or you have feedback, I would also love to hear that. So I love you, and good night.